so we're going to go ahead and get started. I like to be mindful of people's time, and I'll just continue to let people in as they come in. So good morning again, everyone. Thanks again. This is our second successful second chances employer panel. Today is Friday, February 26th of 2021, and I'm excited to be here even through COVID. So thank you all for joining us. Thank you all for being interested in the work that we continue to do through our successful second chances employer panels. And our hope is that through these panels that more and more people from the community, as you see what vast array of people represented in the attendees today, that more and more people will be interested in this concept of successful second chances. And so I am the founder and CEO of the SoulFisher Ministries, and our mission is to respond to the needs of youth with incarcerated parents and to promote restorative justice for those currently or formerly incarcerated. And so we do that really through two programs. One is our Educate Now to Achieve Later program, and that's our free after-school tutoring and enrichment program that operates in the Riverview Garden School District. And then our other program, which this whole panel is all about, is My Baby, our Agape Reentry program, and that program is in partnership with the Missouri Department of Corrections. So we are excited to have one of the most powerful representatives of the Missouri Department of Corrections here with us today, who will be our keynote speaker, but that's not my assignment right now, but I will go ahead and get started. So first, I would like to start by thanking our partners. So our biggest partner on this initiative is UMSL, the University of Missouri St. Louis, my alma mater. I'm very proud to be an alum of UMSL. And so our partner is the University of Missouri St. Louis, namely their HR director, James Hurdle, who is on here today. Hey, James, if you could just say just a few words, and then I'll continue to move forward.
Good morning. I'll just say we value our partnership with the SoulFisher Ministries, and didn't know way back when I reached out to Chantel after she had done a briefing with our School of Social Work, actually, about women coming back into the workforce from the justice system, that will lead to this kind of partnership. But it's been a great one, and we continue to support this work and helping people get back into sustainable, independent life once they leave the justice system. So appreciate you, Chantel, and I'm looking forward to the program, especially this one on apprenticeships. We just, at the University of Missouri St. Louis, we just had our first apprenticeship program approved in our maintenance area. It's going to be one of several. We'll look at technology second, but I'm really seeing the opportunity here for both of these. Missouri's has the second largest number of registered apprenticeship programs of any state in the country besides California. So it's a well-established program in the state, and I think marrying these two efforts up makes a lot of sense. So I'm looking forward to hearing from our guests today. Thanks, Chantel.
Great, thank you. And so I also would like to thank Regions Bank, who without them, this initiative probably would not have gotten off the ground the way that we hoped it would. And so through Regions, we received a grant through them to do this initiative, and they've enjoyed supporting it and have continued to support it and will continue to support it. So as long as we continue to have the support of the community, we will continue to do these employer panels. Another component of what we do is our employer open houses. So we identify employers that are interested in learning more about second chance hiring. We bring employers that are already participating in second chance hiring. And our hope is that as we continue to do this important work, that more and more people will continue to get on board with this idea of second chance hiring. I'd like to thank our presenters, so Ken Chapman, Brandon Reed, Tony Bryant, and Becky Epps. You'll hear from all of them throughout the panel, the employer panel today. They each have amazing stories and will contribute in amazing ways to this panel today. Nathan Emmons, who happens to be our board president, also an attorney here in St. Louis, who does some amazing work. He'll be the moderator of the actual panel. And then each and every one of you that decided to spend some of your Friday morning with us. So we're honored to have you here today. So to kick things off, we do have Ken Chapman here. As I shared, his accolades go on and on and on. And so I will not list all of his accolades, and I will let him tell you more about what he does, because he can tell it better than I can. But he is the director of reentry for the Missouri Department of Corrections. He's been in the Department of Corrections for decades now. And he does amazing work. He's also a pastor. So, that's near and dear to my heart. So he's just an amazing guy that believes in second chances for those that have, become involved with the criminal justice system. He has his marching orders. I'm very specific and explicit about what I want to be presented when I invite someone to come. And so he would present on a wide array of topics that are related to apprenticeship. That's another thing that is different about this specific panel. So traditionally, they have all just been employers, but me as the leader of the SoulFisher Ministries, I'm always looking for ways to be more innovative and more creative and other opportunities to bring people into the employment field. And so one way that Jim and I thought would be a unique way to kick off 2021 is looking at this idea of apprenticeships. So if a person has these skills that they're acquiring along the way, and we can place them with an employer, that's kind of like a tryout period, so to speak. So we'll want to let the employers just kind of try out this person that's in this apprenticeship program, so that they can build confidence in this individual as being a valuable member or contribution to their company. So that's what this today will be all about. The breakout sessions will follow Ken's keynote, and then we'll come back and do the panel. So I promise that this day is jam-packed with excitement. So without further ado, I will bring forth Ken Chapman, Director of the Missouri Department of Corrections.
I feel like there should be like the hallelujah chorus that comes after that, because she talked me up way too much. Okay. But really, I'm glad to be here. I'm excited about the opportunity to share with you guys a little bit about what we're doing in the Department of Corrections when it comes to reentry. And it's interesting. I've been the reentry manager director for exactly 3 years as of Monday. So it's been a long but short 3 years, if you understand what I mean by that. So it's a little bit crazy to think that I've been around quite that long, but it's exciting because there's a lot of things that have changed in the Department of Corrections over the last several years. And I really want to spend some time talking to you about the pieces that we've put together as a department that we think are much more client-centered than they've ever been, but also much more centered around the delivery of services. So today, here's the way this is going to work. If you have questions, I would say you probably should pose those into the chat box. And if I don't get them, I'm sure somebody will let me know, but don't wait. It's okay to ask your questions, and it's okay to do those. I may wait to field them till the end, but don't be afraid to put those in the chat box. I want to be able to answer your questions and talk to you. So let me kind of give you this kind of perspective, and then we'll kind of look at it like a funnel, and we'll bring it down to where we're going to talk a little bit more about employment and apprenticeships and trainings and all those kind of things. So several years ago, we went through a shift about 5 years ago with former Governor Greitens getting elected. And one of the first things that he did was he brought in Ann Precythe from North Carolina to be our director. And yes, Chantel's applauding, and I applaud that too. Not just because she's my supervisor, but because, yes, she's great. And immediately she looked at what was going on with our department and said, we got some things we need to fix. And one of the first things that she really started to work on outside of our internal issues was this concept of how can we better serve our clients, and how can we collaborate with others to make reentry more smooth, but also put our people in a position to be successful. So one of the things that we've implemented in the last several years is a brand new evidence-based risk assessment. It's called the Ohio Risk Assessment System. And I see a lot of you nodding, and that is good. Please nod so I can see you. And if you don't get it, shake your head. That'll help me kind of know how to gauge you. I would much rather it be in person, but we can't do that today. So not with COVID. So I get that. So I want to talk to you a little bit about the Ohio Risk Assessment. For a very long time in the state of Missouri, we used several different scores to kind of help us determine what our clients' needs were, We used a salient score. Okay. We used a SACA score, which is a substance abuse score. The salient score is kind of your risk to reoffend, for lack of a better phrase. And we had the institutional risk assessment that we used. It's called the IRRI. Then we had the FRRI, called the FURRY, that we used out in the field. Okay. Those were internal pieces that we used to try and fit. Yeah. Laugh at those. I see some of you laughing, especially Jim. I see a big smile on his face. Okay. I did not make those up. I promise those are real things. Okay. But one of the things that we've realized is that those are not evidence-based, not the way we want them to be. So when we talk about our clients, we want to be very evidence-based, and we want to make sure that the pieces that we're using are pieces that identify areas and fields of improvement for our clients, whether it's in the area of pro-social relationships, whether it's in the area of housing, or those kind of re-entry kind of pieces. We want to make sure that we're focused on those domains. Those domains are very important, and they're not equal across the board, okay? But really for us, it became about risk. What is the client's risk to recidivate? What is the client's risk to come back into prison after release? So what the Ohio Risk Assessment really does for us is it allows us to evaluate who is very high risk, who is high risk, who is moderate risk, and who is low risk. And that's important for us, because one of the things that we have determined in our department is that we want to address those who are high to very high risk. Okay. We want to make sure that the work that we do and the resources that we're pouring in are identifying those who are the greatest risk, not just to public safety, but to themselves, to the community. Okay, we don't want to create more victims, right? We want to make sure we're being good stewards of our money, right? All those are pieces that we want to make sure as a state agency that we're addressing. So we have implemented this risk assessment, and that risk assessment then drives programming. One of my colleagues is in my office this morning, and Heather Cullen just came from JCCC, which is one of our max prisons, and she is now a part of our team. And that's one of the things that she's had to do a lot, is look at that Ohio risk assessment system and determine it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn this over to her. I'm just kidding. She just looked at me with this panic look. She's like on day 12, you all. So that was just for me. That was just a perk of being the boss. So now, don't stick up that finger. I'm just kidding. She didn't do that either. So, but you know, it's the joy of having someone on your team who's been out in the trenches, who really knows what that looks like, knows the value of that evaluation. So having said that to you, we as a department have about 68 different strategic initiatives that we have identified are things that we want to work on. And they range from 3 different pieces strategic plan that we have. Our strategic plan focuses on 3 things. It focuses on our workforce. Okay. How do we help our people be more successful? How to create a safer work environment for them? That's a lot of it. Okay. It's also focused on what can we do within our department to make sure that we're addressing risk and recidivism. Okay. So you've got risk and recidivism, you've got workforce and developing a workforce, because as you know, we're short staffed, but then creating this safer work environment. And the safer work environment over here affects not just our staff, but it affects our clients. It affects our community. It's having a bigger picture of what it really means to be safe and secure. And what does it mean for us to do that? And we can't do that without you all. We can't do that without UMSL. We can't do that without SoulFisher Ministries. We can't do that without Connections to Success. We can't do that without Criminal Justice Ministry. You know, I see Jennifer Berry on here from Springfield. Jennifer, we can't do that without you guys in Springfield at the City of Springfield Job Center. All these pieces come into play, and we have to look at that and say, how do we address those? So when you talk about the Ohio Risk Assessment System, it is very much a part of that strategic plan. We have to begin to look at what needs to happen within our system for us to better serve the client. And now, before we get too far, and I'm going to watch the time so I don't go over, okay? But because I am a preacher, I could go forever, okay? And if I get bored, I'm going to go to the Cardinals. So I just want everybody to know that up front, okay? But really, my piece of this is to help you see the value of that risk assessment, and then start talking to you about the strategic initiatives that we are implementing that specifically affect the work that you do. So here we've taken this risk assessment and we've identified who the high risk and very high risk clients are, okay? What we're then going to do is we're going to put them into a transitional housing unit, okay? And some of you have worked with us for a very long time. And I know some of you think when I say transitional housing unit, you want to roll your eyes. You're careful not to because you know I can see you, okay? But it's okay. It's okay to do that because we're remodeling what those transitional housing units are. And they are a place where our clients will get intensive cognitive behavioral programming, okay? Evidence-based cognitive behavioral programming that will assess things like life skills, criminal thinking, those pieces of the puzzle that continually come back to play themselves out in the lives of our clients, no matter whether they're in the institution, they're transitioning out, or they're actually in our communities. We want to address that. So we're going to be looking at life skills. We're going to be looking at parenting. We're going to be looking at how can we get you better ready for employment. That's one of the things that we're going to be working on in that transitional housing unit. So that's going to be a place where the clients are going to go about 90 days from release and get some more intensive preparation so that they can be prepared. Now I want you to pause there and go back to the Ohio risk assessment. A part of the Ohio risk assessment is establishing a case management plan with very specific goals that the client should be completing all throughout their incarceration. Okay. So as they're completing these goals, it is getting updated in the case management plan. Okay. So the case manager in the institution is updating that. The institutional parole officer is updating that. Okay. So as we get closer to release, these goals have evolved. Okay. And they've gone from over here to just getting adjusted to life inside prison, basically, to now where we're getting you transition towards release. And now as we get closer to release, we're going to hone in on some specific skills. And I want to be very specific with you. How many of our clients probably have had an opportunity to really go to an actual job interview? Chantel's shaking her head frantically like this, okay? Very few of them do. You and I may know that, hey, if I'm going to go to a job interview, how am I going to dress? I'm sure I'm going to dress in my flip-flops, am I? I'm not. Tony says, yes, I am. No, I'm not, Tony. But how am I going to dress? How am I going to prepare? I don't know. I've never done that before, have I? I've never gone through this, so I don't know. We assume they know, but they don't. And what we're realizing is we need to train them on not just what to wear, but on how to conduct yourself. How do you sit in an interview? You know, when I was growing up, I was really into speech and drama, and I had a really hard time with what do I do with my hands? Okay, don't laugh at me. I mean, I talk with my hands, so you all know what I do with my hands. Okay, you've already seen it, right? I mean, you've seen it already. So, but what do I do with my hands in a sense of what do I do? How do I sit? How do I respond? That's right. Wax on, wax off. How do I manage my composure when I've never been in that situation before? So for us, a part of the evidence-based piece is allowing them to be put in that position prior to release from prison. They're actually going to go through some mock interviews, and they're going to actually practice what to do. You know, I said a while ago that I see some folks from City of Springfield and the Job Center, and I saw some Connections to Success folks. This is the programs that they do inside of our prisons, is helping our clients understand, how do I conduct myself in that interview? How do I interact with an employer? How do I talk with my supervisor? These are all pieces of the puzzle that they're going to get in the transitional housing unit, because our high risk and our very high risk clients desperately need that. And it's not just about getting the most bang for your buck. It's about figuring out how to invest in the clients that really need that investment. It's not to say that some don't. All of them need investment, okay? And all of them need that, but some of them don't need it as much as others. So for us, it's using that assessment to determine who needs more assistance than others. And let's give them that assistance. So they're getting that in the transitional housing unit, okay? Meanwhile, on the other side of the camp, we have a reentry center that we are developing. And that reentry center is a place for the delivery of release services. Okay. Now what we do is we take all of our clients, no matter what their risk score is, they have the opportunity to go to a reentry center. And there's some very basic core release services that will be provided in the reentry center. Okay. How many of you, and I'm going to ask for a show of hands or whatever you want to do that I can see you. How many of you, if I say SNAP, know what that is? Why don't I see every hand raised? The rest of you should be ashamed. I'm just kidding. SNAP is incredibly important, okay? It's Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program, okay? And it's offered through Department of Social Services. A lot of our clients are going to qualify for SNAP, okay? Those who have manufactured and distributed drugs of some kind, it's going to be harder for them to get on SNAP. They're probably not going to get approved. But here's one for you. 96% of our women who are incarcerated will qualify for SNAP. That's a big deal. That assistance for them as they get out of prison is very important. So historically what's happened is that they have not been able to get signed up for SNAP until they're released. Okay? Can't do it till you're released. We've worked with Department of Social Services now to where there's a 30-day waiver. So our clients can sign up 30 days before release from prison. I see hands all over the place. I appreciate that, you guys. That applying for those kind of services prior to release means there's a shorter turnaround time on delivery of services. Are you with me? So instead of it taking 3 to 4 weeks, and now it could take 3 to 4 days. Is that not a big deal? That is huge. I see people nodding their head, okay? It's a huge deal for us because what we recognize and what we want to see in the reentry center is, can we shorten the delivery time on services that are needed and that are most important? SNAP is one of those because it doesn't just affect our clients. It affects our clients' family. It affects their children. It affects their mate. It affects their ability to transition, and I'm going to use this term loosely, comfortably back into the community. The pressure is already great, as you guys know. I'm talking to the choir. The anxiety is high, especially if this is your second or third or fourth time out of prison. Okay, the anxiety is very high. So how do we reduce that? But also, how do we get that service provided beforehand? And here's the also great thing about SNAP. How many of you have heard of Skill Up? I see some hands. Excellent. That's the work program associated with SNAP. So now not only have we affected them with food and providing for their families, now we've got them into another work program that can help them with certain needs and certain skills and certain things that they have that are necessities. Are you with me? Now we've broadened the scope of support for that client. And all we're doing is we're offering them state programs. That's it. That's all we're doing. So they're coming in, they're getting screened for SNAP, they're getting screened for TANF, they're getting screened for Missouri Work Assistance. TANF, Temporary Assistance for Needy Families. The work program through Social Services is Missouri Work Assistance Program. So here we got these pieces. Now we're going to bring in, on top of that, to the reentry center guys, we're going to bring in John Jenright. How many of you know who John is? He is not on this call, so I'm going to tell you John is a problem. I'm just kidding. John's a great guy. He works with child support enforcement. How many of you have ever had a client that got out of prison, whether male or female, and they struggled with their modifications on child support? I see Tiffany nodding her head too. Yes, Tiffany, it's a problem, isn't it? And sometimes that money that has accrued creates a real deficit and a real barrier for them to transition into self-sufficiency. So John's group is going to come in, and already is coming into the institution. They're just going to come into the reentry center now and provide those modifications prior to release from prison. And it's going to be based on what their income is. Are you with me? So what that does for them, it doesn't create a hole for them before they're released from prison. That doesn't sound like a big deal maybe to some of you, but to us in government, that means that they're coming into a Department of Corrections facility with their laptop connecting to a network that is separate from ours and accessing very personal and private client information right there to provide timely on-site case management. So now we've brought in DSS with SNAP and TANF. We've brought in John Jen Wright with Child Support Enforcement. Meanwhile, all this work is being documented into a case management plan. So the institutional parole officer is documenting all this so that when that client gets closer to release, that information is then shared with the field PO. So the field PO is not working from behind. The field PO is working off current, accurate information. So now we bring in people like the Job Center into that reentry center. And what is the Job Center doing? They're providing Wagner Pizer services, and they're providing some WIOA assistance, okay? Everybody knows what WIOA is? Workforce Innovation and Opportunity Act. Support services money through the workforce development boards that they can provide to training, they can provide to supports. So it could range all the way from tools to work clothes to assistance with maybe some transportation, other pieces. Are you with me? So those supports are now very, very important. Okay. So we're bringing them into the situation. So now I'm interacting with, a job specialist. I'm interacting with somebody 90 days prior to release about what my skills and abilities are. I'm taking an ONET. They're helping me determine where I want to go, where I can go. They're looking into the system to see where there are jobs potentially for me to connect to. And the goal is for that to result 30 days of me actually applying for positions in the community while I'm still incarcerated. Is that not huge? Is employment not a gigantic barrier? If it isn't, Chantel, you have picked the wrong topic, okay? But it is. So we know that. So the object there then is for us to get them a job prior to release from prison. What difference does that make? Now you're going to say, okay, how does the employer interact, right? Anybody got that question? Work with me, people. I need something from you. Thank you. Thank you. James, thank you. I appreciate it. Julie, I appreciate that. Okay. So what's going to happen now is we're going to connect the employer much like you and I are talking. How cool is that? How cool is it to say that inside the prisons, we're going to have iPads where they can FaceTime with the employer and do an interview? I need to tell you something. I saw that happen at Vandalia. I saw that happen with a woman who's being released to Ozark, Missouri. She had worked in our MVE factory, Missouri Vocational Enterprises, as an industrial sewer. I mean, Julie, you're raising your hand. You know what I'm talking about, don't you? I mean, and she got offered a job right there on the spot. And what was great was she hits the X button on the iPad and she just starts crying. Now, I just saw some of you go, oh, and even those of you with masks, Bella, I saw your eyes raise. Okay. So what's happening is you see the power of what this means to our clients. Now you've gone from hard skills to now you've touched down into the inside of that person. Now hope is there. Now they're realizing, holy cow, I've got maybe SNAP. I've got my modifications that I need for child support. Now I've got a job. But let's say somebody has also some, we estimate through the federal government that probably 75 to 80% of our clients have co-occurring disorders, substance use and mental health. So we know that that's an issue. We know that that's a problem. Good news for all of you out there in the community, we are integrating those two sections in our department into one unit. So we're going to be addressing co-occurring disorders just like it's done in the community. Isn't that awesome? That's amazing. We want life inside the prison to resemble what it's going to be like in the community as much as we can. So now we're integrating this piece. So who do we bring in to help us there? Voc Rehab now comes in. And they say, okay, who qualifies for what services? And as you know, that's a federal program, and we may have some folks from Voc Rehab in our meeting here today. And some of you are probably saying, well, you can't do that. Federal government won't let you do that till they're released. But they're going to do the very same thing that SNAP does. They're going to come in at 30 days. They're going to do all their assessments. They're going to get a case plan lined up for that client. And the minute they're released, they're going to push a button. And now those supports come into play. and it's all captured in the case management plan. So right prior to release, a conversation like this, and is Marge McClure on here? I thought I saw Marge somewhere. Yeah, Marge is on here. One of the things that we do with connections with another program that we have is we have monthly calls and monthly updates on where we're at with clients. But we also have a call that Heather was a part of this week where we talk specifically about a client. They're getting ready to be released. What services do they need? Where are they at? The client is on a call, much like this, where we're talking with providers and making sure that the system is lined up for them prior to release. How powerful would it be for that client now to actually be on a call or be in a FaceTime or be in a Zoom meeting with Voc Rehab, social services? I'm going to pick on criminal justice ministry just because I saw Tom's name on there. Can you imagine what that looks like? I see Brandon. If we could have all of that happen at one time prior to release, if a woman gets that excited about getting a job prior to release, how much is her anxiety going to be shortened by the fact that I get to see all these people who are all on the same page just simply to support me? Now, some of you are going to say, oh, he's all warm fuzzy. But what I want you to understand, though, is that we started up here with an evidence-based risk assessment, and we're identifying our high risk and very high risk clients. And what we're doing is we're moving down the funnel to where we are assessing some of the greatest barriers to reentry. Okay. Housing, safe and affordable housing. Okay. Not just housing. It's got to be safe and affordable. A job, not just a job, but a job that pays a gainful wage, a living wage, something that, even though it may be $15 an hour, after 30, 60, 90 days, it's going to provide benefits. It's going to provide services. Had a conversation with a client who's been out for 6 months, and she jokingly said to me, Mr. Chapman, I got a 401. I said, you got a what? She said, a 401. I said, you got a 401k. And she goes, whatever it is, that's what I got. And I love it. Are you with me? I mean, she never had a 401k. So she didn't know what that was. I got a call several years ago from a client who said, who's this FICA person on my paycheck and where are they taking so much money? I said, that is an excellent question. That as an employee of the state, I can't really comment how I really feel about FICA. Okay. But the point is that this is what it is. And we assume that they know that, you guys, but they don't. So what we're trying to do is we're trying to address those pieces. And so now we get into this, and this is where I'm going to start to wind down here. Now we start talking about for us, which is very important because of Governor Parson, he's always, since he took office over for Governor Greitens, two pieces. And I know I'm preaching to the choir, but they're infrastructure and workforce development. Those are the two foundations of his platform. He's always asking, he's always talking. We submit from our department, from our unit for the Department of Corrections, every week a report on what we've done with employers. And I just want you to know, employers are coming out of the woodwork to talk to us. They want to know, hey, how do we get hooked up with your clients? What are the programs that you're providing? Because I heard that you release 18 to 20,000 people every year. That's a workforce that we think is untapped. Well, darn right it's untapped. And darn right you got people who are motivated to get a job, people who are motivated to keep a job. And it's not just because they're on supervision. It's because they're dissatisfied with the way life has been. And so for us, it's talking to them very strategically and very carefully about what is it you're looking for in a client. Okay. Heather is a part of those conversations here in our unit. Marty Meyer is another connecting point. If you ever have a client that has, or an employer that has questions about, hey, I'd like to get deeper into a relationship with the Department of Corrections, about people, about creating a pipeline of workers, Marty Meyer is the guy to talk to in my office. Okay. martymeyer@doc.mo.gov. Okay. It's not hard to find. And if you can't find him, go to the DOC website, click on my ugly mug that's on the reentry page, and my email will come up. Send it to me. I'll get it to him. So however we need to do that is what we want to do. But we spend a ton of time doing that. Just this week alone, I think we talked to 5 different employers. Now that may not sound like a lot to you. That's a ton, considering 3 years ago, we had in our database about 34 felon-friendly employers. Right now, we have over 326. Okay. And some of those employers, I'm going to tell you that number is low because some of those employers like Sisters of St. Mary's, SSM, they have hospitals all over the state, but we just count them as one employer. Are you with me? So there's a lot of those. I mean, there's Burger Smokehouse. Anybody ever had anything for Burger Smokehouse in California? This is a shameless plug for them. They do great, and they send it all over the world. They're excellent. Pork and beef and cured and all this stuff, and they send it everywhere. Somebody just asked a question, Paula did. Is there an exclusive list with Second Chance Employment? We have a list, but one of the things that our employers ask is that we not share that publicly. But what you can do is if you're struggling to find employment, call us. We have that list, and we're glad to talk to you about certain employers. Are you with me?
And Ken, if you can, we have a portion set up for your Q&A so that you get your thing going.
Perfect.
So if you all have questions, you can go ahead and start typing them in the chat because we have Jaleesa from our team who is gathering those questions, and she'll come back and ask those questions to Ken for you. Thank you.
Guys, I'm sorry I'm talking quick. I just want to be, I want to honor our time, and I'm throwing a lot at you. But what we really want to do is we want to have those conversations with those employers, because our personal relationship with them is incredibly important. When they reach out to us or reach out to Marty and they say, hey, we've got 15 openings in California, Missouri, the minute we get those, we're sending those out to District 27. We're flooding our probation and parole offices, and we're saying, hey, we just had this conversation and here it is. Here's the information. The other thing that we're doing is that we're matching that with the partners that we just talked about. I'm sending it out to Voc Rehab for their clients. I'm sending it out to Jerry Ann over at Social Services so the Skill Up and NWA clients can get it. Those are the pieces that we're doing. We're trying to collaborate because we have a labor shortage in Missouri. I don't care what anybody says. Employers are dying for people. They just need people. And I don't just want to give them people. I want them to realize they're getting trained people. They're getting people who are motivated to go to work, to keep a job, to do what they do. So within that, you whittle that down even more. We have 18 career and tech programs that we have in the Department of Corrections, ranging from cosmetology. Okay, that should make you laugh. I have no hair, but when I do get to go in the prisons, the women cut my hair, okay? From cosmetology to CDL drivers, so, big 18-wheeler rig drivers, we have simulators for that, heavy machinery, all those pieces. I'm not going to go into all 18 of those. Building trades, engine repair, diesel repair, we've got all that stuff. I see Donna King on here. Donna, I'm glad you're here. So anything that needs to be said from a probation and parole side, I'm going to call on you. So get ready. So hi Donna. So I love the work that we do with our probation and parole offices, because every time we get a lead, we send it out, they blast it out. That's how we want to work. And that's how we want to work with you guys. Okay. So we've got these 18 career tech programs. We got Missouri Vocational Enterprises, and that's our prison industries program. Okay. If you've ever been to the MVE website that we have, we do all kinds of things. I'm sitting in an MVE chair. I'm sitting at an MVE desk. I'm working with all kinds of things in my office that are MVE related. Okay. So I want you to understand that those are programs that we have that clients are getting apprenticeship hours for. We'll talk more about that in my breakout here in a little bit, but we have clients that are very, very well trained, and they get hours and hours and hours of experience. I could show you different things in my office to show you the talent of our clients. This may not look like anything to you. It's just a very simple pen holder, but these are made by our clients. It just so happens I'm a Cardinal fan, so they kind of did that for Mr. Chapman, okay? But isn't this awesome? Look at the skill. I mean, and they're so proud of it that they put that it was made by Crossroads offenders at the time. So I love that. I love the fact that we have those kind of things that we can show off, that we have restorative justice programs that are designed for our clients to give back to the community. I want you to recognize that the Department of Corrections is not about just housing people. We're looking at our clients holistically. We're trying to figure out how can we help them. I jokingly said, and Donna will appreciate this, Heather was in my office the other day. I said, I think we're about 4 years away from being redefined as the Department of Corrections to the Department of Corrections and Rehabilitative Services. I mean, I feel like the movement of our department is towards that piece, which is exactly what I love. Because our people don't just need second chances. Some of them need third chances. Some of them need fourth chances. And speaking to you, see, 7. And speaking to you from that perspective, here's what I want to say to you. If it takes someone 7 times to get it right, does that mean we failed all the other times? Or does that mean each time progress was made toward the final end result? So for me and for us as a department, that symbolizes a movement from recidivism being about just reentry into the system to understanding that it's the delivery of services and the timely delivery of services that can make a difference sooner in the process than later. And that's really where we're focused. You know, when we talk about those reentry centers and we talk about those services that we're providing through Voc Rehab and through DSS and through DHEWD, all those services are designed to get the client what they need as soon as possible, allowing them not to start from behind, but to start a couple of steps ahead than where they have historically. And the question that I want to ask you is, does that make a difference? It sure does in the work that you do. It means that you can be spending your resources on other things if we can get those things lined up sooner. And I know we've talked about a lot of stuff, but for us, it's about birth certificates too. It's about getting them a Social Security card, replacement card. It's about getting them a non-driver's license ID. One of the things that I'm really proud to tell you is that we've worked with Department of Social Services and Department of Health and Senior Services and the Department of Revenue to create another option for our clients to get source documents. We can use TANF block funds now to help procure additional cards and additional services through them, which is a huge thing, you guys. It's just, that means TANF block funds will pay for a birth certificate. We only pay for one per lifetime of the offender, okay? We can only pay for one. So if we have already paid for one, then they have to pay for it themselves, okay? And as you know, that sometimes can't happen. That's a problem. So we've talked with social services. They're coming back in with this extra funding source to say, look, this is needed for workforce. This is a workforce development need. You and I know it's an individual need. It's about giving them what they need so that when they get out, they can go, they can move forward. And so what we're trying to do is figure out ways to overcome those barriers. So now it's TANF block, which means they can get as many as they need. They may come back another time and they can still utilize TANF block to get a birth certificate if they need to. That's huge for us. Same thing with Department of Revenue IDs. How huge is that? They get that ID before they leave prison, guys. You as well as I know they're set. They're ready to go to work now. And that's what we're trying to do. We're working with Department of Public Safety, and we're talking about allowing them to get their written test done for driving prior to release. Even have had conversations about allowing them to drive and do their driving test, which was an amazing conversation with some folks at DPS. They're all for it. They're all for it. We're a little bit more hesitant putting people behind a car. Okay, we'll get there. We're getting there. We're moving. As Ann Presythe tells me, slow down. We're going to get there. But even, conversations that I've had with my staff, at the federal level, when they're getting their CDL license, they're also getting to drive. 18-wheelers inside of a prison with an offender behind the wheel frightens some people, and rightfully so. but okay, so what can we do there? How do we make that happen? Let's just not say it can't happen, but let's problem solve it and figure out what we can do to help our clients. As you can see, I get very, very passionate about these kind of things because this is what the work is. This is what we get to do. It's not that we have to do it. It's the fact that we get to do it. So how do we create these opportunities for our clients? And how do we do it in a way that allows us to make sure that at all times we are improving lives for safer communities? So we're constantly pushing that button. That is leaps and bounds from where we were 4 years ago. I mean, it is leaps and bounds, and we're going to keep doing it, and I'm going to keep pushing it, and we're going to keep pushing it, and we're going to figure out what we need to do. And I'm going to, this is a shameless plug now, but I'm going to do this. I'm so appreciative of our employees in the Department of Corrections who work their rear ends off every day in the trenches of institutions, in the trenches and communities, trying to provide opportunities for our clients to be successful. They work so hard. And you guys know we're short-staffed. That's not an excuse. That means some of our custody officers are working hours upon hours upon hours to keep things safe, and how appreciative I am for that. So when we talk about these reentry centers and having state staff come in and provide the services, that means our staff gets to do what they're supposed to do. That means we're stronger. We're stronger in state government, but we're stronger in our communities because of that. So I'm really excited about that work. I'm really excited about how we're working with collaborators, so that reentry center now becomes a place where you get to come in and do your work. We have a place inside the prison now for you to come in to meet with clients pre-release, if that's your choosing, and to begin to problem solve and to begin to overcome barriers prior to release. And it's all come full circle. We started with this evidence-based assessment, and we've identified those who need services more than others. Not to say that they don't get services, but they need more attention. They need a more intensive programming. Now we've whittled it down to a reentry center where everybody can come. And that reentry center is just like what it would be like in the real world. Our clients have to make an appointment to go. Okay? That's what I want. I want them to learn how to be self-sustaining. I want them to understand, hey, this is important, so I'm going to make an appointment. That's how it is with the rest of us, right? I mean, isn't that the way it is in the real world? If I got to go to the DMV, I got to carve that time out in my schedule, and I got to go. Okay. And if I'm like you, I have to sit in line for a little bit. Okay. And that's a shameless plug on the DMV right there. Okay. But those are the challenges, right? We want our clients to understand that it's okay. It's okay to make an appointment. It's okay to go to the appointment. And when you do, and you get the services you need, which are the services we're providing, imagine what that means to them. We're reinforcing good behavior. We're reinforcing the fact and rewarding them for the fact that they are taking initiative. And that's what we want. An offender who sees the opportunity to change and matches that with a desire to change, see where those two connect, that's where real lasting change happens. And that's where we are in this department. That's where we are with you all. That's what you guys bring to the table for us in the community. That opportunity for us to make that, we kind of call it the big bang, for lack of a better phrase. That's the moment that the big bang happens. That's the moment that life change really becomes significant. The opportunity is there. The desire is there. Now it matches. And so we just want to create that synergy, but we want what we do to resemble what can happen in the community. I want to ask you a question. Are we asking social services to do anything different than what they're doing out in the community? We're asking them to come into the prison and do the same thing. We're asking Voc Rehab to come into the prison and do the same thing. We're asking the job center staff to come into the prison and do the same thing. We're asking Connections to Success to come in and apply to come in from Springfield Job Center and do the same thing. We're not asking you to do anything different. We don't want to change you. That's not our purpose. Our goal is to join you in this work and for us to work together to make everybody's life better. And when we have an offender that succeeds, when I have an offender that calls me and says, Mr. Chapman, what's a 401k? That's a retirement piece for you. That's awesome. What's this FICA guy? Why is he taking all my money? Okay, well, let's talk about that. And it's fun to watch them. You all know what I'm talking about. It's that proverbial light bulb that comes on and it's connected. And you see that smile, because that smile is from a place of desperation. I don't know what to do. I don't know how to, if I knew what to do and I knew how to do it, Mr. Chapman, I would have done it. And so they don't know. And that's our job. Somebody said the word a while ago, education. It is a lot of education, Heather. I think we're talking about that. And it's a lot about education. For us, information is power for our clients. Information, informing them, including them in that process. All along, they're included. So I wanted to give you an overview, because now as we go into my breakout, at least mine, we can talk a little bit more about some of the newer apprenticeship programs that we've developed that we're real excited about. And they're not programs that are DOC led. They're programs that are led from community folks coming inside the prison. And there's some cool stuff going on. So I just want to thank you. I hope this was informative. That's really what I wanted it to be. I hope you can see the vision of Ann Precythe and what we're doing and how we're trying to be holistic in our approach to our clients. I know Donna's on here. I'm so grateful for PMP in the midst of this pandemic and how creative they have become in providing services to our clients. Sometimes it takes a pandemic for us to do something creative and to get outside of the norm. And boy, I tell you what, Donna and her team in St. Louis have pivoted so quickly and done such a great job. So overall, I just want to say thank you for the opportunity. I hope it was enjoyable. If there's questions that you have for me, please don't be afraid to reach out. And with that, I'm giving you 5 minutes back. So let's talk about the Cardinals, everybody, for a minute. Let's talk about Nolan Arenado.
Thank you so much, Ken. That was amazing. What do you all think? Let's give him like a spirit fingers, round of applause, hand emotion on the screen. Yes, that was definitely powerful, very informative. Thank you, thank you, thank you. And I have that same question, like, who is this FICA guy that keeps taking all my money? I have that same question. I just can't get the answer of why do I pay so many taxes? But anyway, thank you again. And I know as people kind of gather their thoughts off of what you just kind of presented to us, and go ahead again, as I said, put those questions in the chat box, and Jaleesa is on here to take those questions. But Ken, I have a question for you. I know you said that like 4 years ago, a lot of what's happening really wasn't happening. And so I attribute that to having, that we use this buzzword now, a very progressive director in place, a very progressive director of reentry. So what, like, is it a thing that you can contribute to, like the shifting point or the point where the shift happened, where all of this amazing work began to happen?
If I was going to try and narrow down for you guys really where things really changed for us, I'm going to tell you, and whether I don't want to get into politics here, but I really do think that when Governor Greitens came to office and he said, state government in Missouri can't do the things that it's always done. I don't just want to promote whoever seems to be next in line to be a director of a program. I don't want it to be wed necessarily to a certain party. I want to get the right people in the right place to do the right things. Ann Precythe was just a diamond. I mean, I'm going to tell you, and honestly, this is not because she's my supervisor, anything like that. As good of a leader as she is that good of a person. I mean, and that's the difference. With Ann, it's not just about what you're doing, it's about how you're doing it. And so when she came on, she inherited a complete total mess.
Yes.
And I'm just going to tell you, one of the things that I was very offended at that former Governor Greitens kept saying over and over again was that corrections is broken. And I don't think we were necessarily broken. I think we had lost our way. And somebody would say, well, that's semantical. It's not semantical. There are infrastructure things in our department that we've not changed. I mean, there are things that haven't changed. There are some things that have, because we had to address some of our internal issues. So I think when Ann came on, that signified a change. But I think also, if you were to look at our leadership in our department, there's a lot of other pieces that have changed in that amount of time. We have had a massive turnover in wardens. Heather and I were talking about that the other day. We have a ton of new wardens, and that's because people have retired. And so there's some new blood coming in, but the department has really gone away from who's next in line to establishing the fact that we need to be internally creating leaders. And that concept of creating a leader bleeds over into how we deal with our clients when they're incarcerated. We need to be developing leaders there too. And we need to be giving them some opportunities. One of the things that I didn't get to mention to you guys is peer support specialists. We had a big meeting yesterday, and it was one of the most exciting meetings. That's right, I said an exciting meeting. We had one of the most exciting meetings yesterday about how we're going to implement peer supports inside of our prisons, how we're going to train our clients who are incarcerated to be certified peer support specialists. The credentialing board come in, train them. Now, they're not going to actually be able to be certified upon release. They still have to go through the same process when they get out. But internally, there's no reason why they can't be working toward a pre-apprenticeship. There is no reason why we can't be logging their hours. There's no reason why MOCRESP or the coalition can't be helping us give them continuing education programming while they're incarcerated to keep that education piece up. Why would we not do that? The community does it. The community does it well, and they need more. Yeah. So hello, yeah. We have this audience here that this captivated audience, as we call it, that is hungry for that. What better than to give our criminal justice clients, our justice involved individuals, somebody who has not just the co-occurring disorders of mental health and substance use, but they also have the life experience of having been in prison, of having been inside the system now. So now, man, we've got the trifecta. I mean, we can really do some pretty cool work. And what does that mean for, Donna and her team in St. Louis, who's doing this great work? How can we help them get better, and how can we provide services for them? It is really cool to think about how far we've come in a very short amount of time. And there's a lot of changes that we're still doing, but that is one of the conversations that I'm really, and I get to lead that team, which is even better because that means I get to kind of mold that and make that happen the way we want it to happen. So it's really cool. Those are the pieces, Chantel, that I would tell you. You can link it to Anne, but you can also link it, I think, to the last several years, to the fact that we are very dissatisfied with some of the outcomes that we're getting. So to do business the same way we've done it before makes zero sense. So we're going to change, and we're not going to be afraid to change, and we're not going to be afraid to make a mistake. So, okay, this didn't work, but at least we know it doesn't work. So let's revisit it. Let's look at it from a different perspective. That is new to us. That is very new to us. So I say Ian Presythe. I'm also going to say Matt Sturm. Don't anybody say and tell him I mentioned him in that light. They'll go straight to his head. But those two are quite the tandem. What she brings in energy and excitement and evidence-based programs is what Matt brings on the other side with details. Okay, so what does this look like in the prison? What does this look like in how we're trying to bring services to our clients? What impact does this have on our staff? How does this change the culture of our prisons? So you've got these two thinkers that really balance each other well. And so I'm grateful for that. Don't ever tell him I said that. Okay, Heather, yeah. So, and I've already had my engage for this month, so it's not going to affect my evaluation, guys. Okay. So, but it's exciting. I mean, I know you can tell that from my excitement, but it's just good days.
Yeah. Okay, so we do have a few questions in the chat. The first one is from Paula, and she's asking, is there an exclusive list of second chance employers?
Yeah, I think he already answered that.
Yeah, we do. And we can share that with you on an individual basis of some of those pieces. So again, don't be afraid to reach out to Marty or myself or Heather or anybody on my team.
All right. And then the next one is from Marge, and she's asking, what else would you like to see from social services and nonprofits who are serving justice involved individuals?
I want to see relentless pursuit of case management alongside of our team. I want us all to pursue that together. I want us to be relentless, and I want us to be resilient. That's new, right, everybody? It's kind of new. I mean, some of us do it really well, some of us don't. The point is that I want to see that come together for us as people who are working under a common thread. How can we work together for the betterment of the client? I've told you that we're not focused on a system anymore. We're focused on the client. And as we focus more on the client, the focus becomes on the timely delivery of services. So as we continue in that path, that means we have to talk. Okay. Erica, that means we got to talk. I mean, Tiffany, that means we got to talk. You know, Joni, that means we got to talk. We got to figure out, Becky, how best to serve clients and how best that looks. So that's the work that we've got to do together. So I want you to be relentless in your pursuit of that. I want you to reach out to Donna King. Let me give you her cell phone. I'm just kidding, Donna. Don't panic. Okay. I don't even know if Donna's still on the call. So somebody tell her I said that. Okay.
Don't worry. I'll tell her when I talk to her. That
Perfect. And she'll just say, Chapman, gosh darn it. So, but the point is that I think that's what I want to see. I want to see us pursue their success alongside of them, not in front of them, not behind them, but alongside of them. And there's a difference. And it goes back, Brandon, to some of the conversation I know you and I have had about the peer support piece. You know, that's what we need to be doing. That's what we need to have. So.
Brandon, you had a question. It's regarding peer support specialists. So has there been any discussion surrounding the credential process for people with felony convictions? And is there significant barriers in obtaining these?
Yes. Yeah, that's a great question. And I'm really glad to tell you that we're having those ongoing conversations with Scott Breedlove. I hope that's a name that some of you will recognize. Stacy, and I can never pronounce Stacy's last name from the credentialing board, so don't tell her I said that. I think it's Langendorfer. I don't know what it is. So, but she's got a really long name. I just call her Stacy. So that's me being simple. But I think the conversation for us is much like we have with an employer, Brandon. It's not so much who will you certify. Let's just have a discussion about who you won't, and let's start there. That may be an easier discussion than who you will. So let's weed out the ones that you definitely won't. And then can we talk about those? Just so I can feel better about that conversation, because I don't know if you guys know this, but a lot of people have a hard time hiring somebody with murder too. A lot of employers do, which I don't know how much you know about murder two guys or women. They're in prison for about 20, 25 years, and then they get out. And these are people typically, and I mean this, typically have no other previous criminal justice activity. They were in a crime of the moment, and this is what happened. And so my comment to employers is, did you know that they recidivate less than anybody else? I mean, they just don't have the criminal justice history that others do. That, for those of us in the field, they don't have the rap sheet. So why would you not hire them? Well, I just assume because it's a violent crime. Well, let's talk about that. Can we just have a discussion? And if you still say you don't want to, employer, I'm okay with that. But let's talk through that. Okay. Let's talk through the fact that you can hire a sex offender in the right job and they succeed. And they be very, very qualified. Let's talk about that. It's not that I'm saying you have to, but let's have those discussions. So a lot of it is, as what Heather and I were talking about a while ago, it's about education, but a lot of it is about engagement and just saying, hey, I agree, I understand, but I just want to give you some facts. And you can process them. If you say, Ken, I'm not interested, so be it. I'm not going to push that, but I just want to have a real conversation about what is most important and about what you're really dealing with. So a lot of that is, back in the day, the National Institute of Corrections had the Mythbusters that they would send out. Some of you may remember those, some of you may not, but the Mythbusters were talking about things that people really think they know about criminal justice that they don't. And so there's a lot of that. But Brandon, that's a great question. And Scott is really open to that, which I really like. So Stacy, it's that conversation about how can we create opportunity rather than create barriers. And so there is an exception that can be applied for, and they're looking at even extending that even further. So those are conversations that I would have said 4 years ago, I don't know if they'll ever happen. Now they're happening because of the investment in the client and understanding the value that our clients bring to that program. So it's awesome. Let's see.
Well, there's a question from Jim Hurdle. Is there or will there be some evidence-based information for the success or lack of risk to employers for hiring someone with a new reentry, from the new reentry approach you described?
No, but thanks for asking, James. No, it's going to come. It's one of the things that we've really just kind of started working on. And that's one of the things, and I should have said this, and I'm glad you asked this question, James. I should have been a little clearer about this. Let me clarify. The things that we're tracking inside that reentry center with employment and with those services is the delivery of the service. Were they exposed to the service? When was the VR file? When was the button push, so to speak? We want to track that piece first and foremost. I don't care about a turnstile. I don't care how many people come through. That's not a value to me. What I want to track is that service. And so I think that information will come alongside of that. That's one of the things we want to track. And we've had some discussion. Should I call you James or Jim? Either one's okay. Okay. I'm gonna call you Jim.
I go by Jim, but that's fine.
Okay. Perfect. Because I feel like it's so formal. Okay. So Jim, what we're gonna do is we're gonna also track that through Mo Jobs, through what they do with that program. So there's gonna be kind of a layered approach to how we track that. That data is very important to me. I want to know what's working. Just by the way, everybody, there's going to be we're working with a social finance group right now about a grant opportunity that's going to come out in the St. Louis area. And one of the things that we're going to be looking at are two approaches to reentry. We're going to be looking at a housing first approach, and we're going to be looking at an employment first approach. And there's going to be pieces of that grant that are going to be available for multiple folks in the St. Louis area. So be watching for that, be looking for that, because I want to see, does one approach work better with high risk clients? Does one approach look better with a moderate risk client? Are you with me? I want to be able to say that when we attach money to a program, that we're tracking what we see from a perspective of what works best for clients. And what we may find out is what we already know, is that it's way too subjective to say that one works better than another, but we don't know till we look. And that's my piece. I'm not going to assume anything. I want to see the data. I want to see what it tells me. So Jim, I think that's kind of what we're looking at. The success and the lack of risk for that employer, that goes also back, and I'm going to say this, to educating that employer about what safeguards are in place for them. Federal bonding program, 6 months, free federal bonding. All you got to do is call a number at the job center. It takes about 15 minutes. Doesn't take long. You can get that federal bonding and that amount of money for 6 months free of charge to the employer. Okay. WOTC, work opportunity tax credit for that employer for hiring a justice involved individual. It's amazing how employers know that about veterans, but they don't know that about justice involved folks. There's a tax break that's available to you that will help you. If you hire 6 offenders and you apply for the WOTC, you can hire a 7th offender free. Now that sounds crazy, like I'm trying to buy one, get one. I know I feel like I'm, trying to sell you shoes BOGO here, but really that's a huge benefit to an employer. I mean, instead of just hiring 6 people, I can hire 7. And basically I'm hiring that 7th one for nothing.
I'm on board.
Yeah, I mean, you see what I'm getting at? I mean, and these are the kind of conversations that Marty and our staff are having with employers all the time. And there's some paperwork involved in the WOTC piece, Jim. I'm not going to lie to you. I mean, that is really kind of a heavier lift, but we can get you connected with the people that do that. So these are the things that we're trying to just educate on, but we're also trying to push the needle. And we're trying to get people to say, not that you have to hire them, but would you consider hiring this justice involved person, knowing that you have some protection for 6 months, knowing that you're going to get a tax break here of $2,400, articulating that to them so they can sit there and say, oh, wow. Okay. Yeah, that I didn't know that was available. And that's what we keep hearing over and over. So we've not done a good job, state, of getting that information out. And we got to do better. We got to be better. I got to be better today than I was yesterday. And tomorrow's my day off, so I'm not going to do anything tomorrow.
All right, so great. Thanks for those great questions, Ken.
Yes.
Again, thanks for your amazing input, your wealth of knowledge, just a wealth of knowledge. And so I think Jaleesa has a quick poll that she wants to put up for us to go ahead and do. So if you could, you'll see it pop up. Just go ahead and answer the questions on the poll. All righty. So thank you all for doing that. And so now we're going to move into our breakout sessions. And you all should already know like which breakout room you're going into, but just in case you don't, breakout room 1 is with Ken Chapman, who we just heard from. In this session, he will facilitate and focus on current pre-release programs at both men and women's prisons, the importance of ensuring a gender responsive approach to ensuring access to pre-release apprenticeships, and hear suggestions from attendees. So come with some ideas and, some things that you would like to see. Breakout room 2 is our own Tony Bryan. This session will be a focus on apprenticeship programs in the cybersecurity field /IT. I'm interested. He will discuss opportunities and challenges in this field for justice impacted men and women. And he will also share how skills learned in the cybersecurity apprenticeship program may transfer to other fields with fewer restrictions. So again, we're trying to take, all approaches to this work as we possibly can. And then breakout room 3 is Becky Epps. She's with St. Louis Community College, and she will focus on current apprenticeship programs at the college, how successful they have been for those with and without a felony conviction. And she will also share which opportunities offer fewer restrictions for justice involved individuals. So you'll see your the box pop up in a minute. Just go ahead and click your breakout room to join it, and we'll see you back here at about 10:45. So enjoy your breakout session.
I think we should all convince Ken to do a TikTok dance while we're sitting here watching him. What do you think?
TikTok, Ken.
Let's see you do the savage. We get the.
See, I'm Baptist, so we don't dance. We foot function. I'm just kidding. What do you want me to do? Some of this? A little wax on, a little wax off. Paint the fence. I'm dating myself now, but that's what you get from Ken Chapman. As a matter of fact, Heather just walked out of the room. That's how bad it was. She just walked out of the room.
So I think everybody is back from their breakout rooms, and we have another poll. So our next poll should be popping up momentarily. Again, go ahead and answer the poll questions really quickly, and then we'll move on into our panel. Thank you all for still being with us. I hope you all enjoyed your breakout rooms. I know I did. I was in with Tony, and we got some great information, and I will be contacting him. I love making these great connections through events like this. So yes, so we are ready to move on to the next portion of the event, and that's our panel. And we just had our moderator to come in, Nathan Emmons, and so perfect timing. I'll go ahead and introduce Nathan. So Nathan is the board president of the SoulFisher Ministries. He is an attorney in St. Louis at Schlichter, Bogart, and Denton. Prior to joining the board of directors, Nathan researched mass incarceration while at the Clark Fox Family Foundation in Clayton, Missouri, where he developed a program and presentation to encourage the community to address this phenomena at the city, state, and national level. So that phenomena is just mass incarceration. Nathan received his JD from the University of Pennsylvania Law School, where he was the executive director of the Prisoners Education and Advocacy Project, and his bachelor degree in philosophy, politics, and economics from the University of Pennsylvania College of Arts and Sciences. So without further ado, I will introduce Nathan Emmons, our moderator for this portion. Welcome, Nathan.
Thank you, Chantel, for the introduction. And I'm happy to be with all of you today. So as you all know, we're now moving into the panel portion of this event, and we have 4 terrific panelists. I am going to introduce them, then I'm going to have some questions. Some of them are going to be more focused towards one or another person, but I'll ask all panelists to chime in if they feel like they have material to contribute. And then we'll also have time for questions and answers for people who are listening. So if you have questions, please, during the course of this panel discussion, add them to the chat box. Once we get to the end of some of the questions that I have, or as they seem appropriate to mix in, I'll ask some of those questions. And then if we have any leftover time at the end, as we're working through these questions, then you might have an opportunity to ask them yourselves. But first, I'd like to begin by introducing our panelists today. So I'll start with Tony Bryan. Tony Bryan is the Executive Director of Cyber Up and is committed to cultivating the cybersecurity talent pipeline for today and tomorrow. He joined Cyber Up as the first employee in 2016 after serving with other nonprofits. And with over 20 years of leadership experience, he has become a cybersecurity workforce advocate. He focuses on high quality apprenticeships and gamification of learning for K-12 students. He was raised in St. Louis, Missouri, and served in the United States Army for 9 years. During that time, he completed his Bachelor's of Science in Business from Columbia College and received an MBA from Webster University. He is proudly St. Louis made and is a self-proclaimed nonprofit nerd. When he's not working, he enjoys spending time with his wife, Addie, and their 4 children. He is a football fanatic, and he claims himself to play way too many video games. He describes Apex as his current favorite. I don't know what that is, but maybe he can tell us a little bit about that. And he helps other nonprofits meet their goals through volunteering and board service. Next, our next panelist is Brandon Reed. Brandon is a formerly incarcerated individual who has found a passion for helping men and women re-enter the community after prison. He currently works at the Criminal Justice Ministry as the intake coordinator and has spent several years working directly with clients in CJM's housing program. His mission includes using his lived experience along with his professional knowledge to assist clients in their successful reentry process. Our next panelist is Becky Epps. Becky has 20 plus years experience managing state and federal training grants with the St. Louis Community College, where she is the manager of the Center for Workforce Innovation and is a member of the Workforce Solutions Group. She oversees several technical training programs, including HVAC, industrial maintenance, the Boeing pre-employment training program, and starting this fall, if that's correct, certified welding. She manages St. Louis Community College's portion of a statewide Department of Labor consortium grant called the Missouri Apprenticeships and Manufacturing Programs Grant, and that focuses on creating and expanding apprenticeships. She also sits on the board of the National Coalition of Advanced Technology Centers, which is a nationwide network of higher education and industry-led strategic partner resources that advocates, advises, and promotes the use of advanced technology applications to enhance economic and workforce development programs and services. Our last, but certainly not least, panelist is Ken Chapman. You've all heard from Ken some this morning, I believe, so I will not give you his whole bio again, but just as a reminder, he is the Reentry and Women Offender Program Manager for the Missouri Department of Corrections, and is also a chaplain, a case manager, and work release coordinator. Of course, now, like I say, has become a program manager with a background in religious studies, a Master of Divinity, and a Doctor of Ministry. And you've already heard some today about the amazing work that he does. So like I said, I have some questions that are directed to individual participants, but that doesn't mean that any of the other panelists should shy away from contributing if they have something that they feel like they can add that would be helpful. I would like to start, if I could, with a question for Brandon. Because the purpose of this event is helping to connect employers with people who have been previously incarcerated. And so I think it would be helpful to start the conversation by centering on someone who has experienced some of these issues themselves. And so, Brandon, if you could tell us in a condensed form, how did you get from post-release to here? And looking back, what would you have liked to have had in prison in terms of apprenticeship opportunities or just connections to resources to prepare you for release?
Yeah, thank you. So I think for me, when I got out of prison, and I went 4 times, so I think for me, it was really just a matter of trying to navigate the system. So I had an opportunity where I was pretty apt about using computers and kind of having all that kind of knowledge prior to me kind of starting my career path. So one of the things that I found really challenging was just trying to navigate the system as far as just being a felon itself, right? So I just was unaware of what opportunities were actually readily available to me versus what weren't, you know? So you hear a lot of stories, especially when you're in prison. Well, you can't do this, you can't do that. I started going to St. Louis Community College. I know she's on the panel as well. But just even going to talk to an admission counselor, like disclosing that information. That's not something you want to have within the first conversation. But if you're having a career kind of discussion, you need to kind of bring that up, because you might not get licensed. You might not be able to get that job kind of at the end of it. So regarding apprenticeships, I'll just be very brutally honest. I was not a huge fan of those, especially early in my career. I was not a huge fan of them to begin with, just because I think they brought a lot of false hope. All right. So especially when we're working with clients, you send them through this 6-8 week, maybe 6-month program with the hopes that they're, they're sold these dreams, and then it never actually comes to fruition because a lot of the employers would never actually hire you. So I always kind of shied away, especially when working with clients, from doing these apprenticeships. But I think I've seen some of them work. I think we were talking in the last panel with like launch code and those type of things, where they've actually completed what they said they were going to complete and actually worked really hard to get those people employed. So I think that's really the key difference, is making sure that the employers are actually going to do what they say they're going to do. So that way we don't shoot down these dreams and make people start over again after like 6 months of training, if that makes any sense.
It does. Thank you. And I want to go from there directly, because I think it relates to a question I have for Tony, which is, I think when we hear about security in general, I would think cybersecurity applies the same way. I would imagine that there's some amount of trepidation from employers saying, well, this is a business, security is a business where we really don't want people who have criminal records from being involved. And, there are a number of industries that I think you hear that in. And so Tony, do you hear or anticipate resistance to hiring formerly incarcerated people? Is that something you've encountered? Have you seen that in some form? And are you aware of any legal barriers in your field? And do you have ideas for how to attack this? Either attacking the attitudes or even attacking the legal barriers that would prevent formerly incarcerated people who maybe have completed a program, but then find themselves feeling like they still don't really have these opportunities available to them?
So, one, it's either been yay or nay. There hasn't been many in-betweens, right? If I talk to an employer, the answer is a hard no. And then some say it doesn't matter to us. For CyberUp, I don't care, right? I mean, when we were doing the prep call for this, you make that if there's a mistake or something happens, you do find yourself incarcerated, you do your time, in our mind, you're done, you move on, life is great, you have opportunities to get a great career. The reservations within the technology space is you are giving somebody access to a large amount of data, and there's some risk. So some of that is just advocating to employers, like, hey, just because, if somebody had a marijuana charge doesn't necessarily mean they're going to go and like steal somebody's data, right? Those are two very different things that have no relevance to one another. Probably the best pathway within this, and then we hit on it a little bit in the breakout, help desk is a really solid pathway to get into a job that starts you in an IT function. And in some of that, I might be able to build some trust, right, within that organization, to where we can have an opportunity to overcome if there would be a blemish or something in somebody's background that their work performance would overshadow any past mistakes, and they would be able to continue to move up. And apprenticeship is a great way to help complement that, right, to bridge that gap, and gives, Brandon mentioned launch code, right? We both serve as advocates on an individual's behalf to get a company excited about incorporating apprenticeship into their hiring strategy. And the apprenticeship is a great way to help close that gap for those folks.
Great. And it sounds like you have maybe what I'd call an enlightened attitude towards these things. Do you feel like your attitude is the most common one? Do you think it's widespread? Do you have any sort of a sense, even if just anecdotally, sort of where things lie in general in the field?
I would say my attitude resonates with 95% of hiring managers, right? Of I would say industry security professionals that are doing the job. What that doesn't necessarily translate to is the talent acquisition or HR functions within that organization, because that's a top-down rule that is being set for those organizations that they have to abide by, right? So if you take into consideration the hiring process is broken, right? So company X posts a job description, they get 100 applications. The whole premise of this is to find all of the reasons why we wouldn't want to talk to that person, right? So then it takes 100 applications to 20. So now I only have to actually talk to 20. Having something on a background is one of those, eliminate that person to minimize that. I've seen some hiring managers go beyond that and say, I want to see all 100 resumes. Let me pick who I get to talk to. I don't want you to screen them out for me, because we might be missing great people that, given the right opportunity, we would be able to help and have them be successful. So hiring managers, 95% agree. HR folks, different story.
Fair enough. And then Ken, I want to take a different angle of what Brandon said to you. And you heard him express some skepticism, or at least some skepticism he used to have about how effective these programs are. What do you say to people? I imagine you've encountered people who have that same sort of skepticism. What message do you have for folks who feel like, well, just because I complete this, am I still going to be at square one when it comes to actually getting a job and a paycheck?
I think one of the keys that we have is in the department, we're going to speak very honestly to our clients, and we're going to be very truthful with them. It's not a perfect science. On our call, Tony referenced the call that we had earlier. It's really true. The workforce system in Missouri is not ideal. It's not the best workforce system in the world. Brandon kind of alluded to it. It's difficult to navigate. I have a couple advanced degrees, and there are times where I wonder, what the heck are we doing here? It's very difficult. Who does what service, and how do you get to it? And so I think there's just a general kind of discontentment with workforce in general. So when you put forth a program like an apprenticeship program, which, Becky can probably speak to this as well as I can, which is a little bit similar to a customized training program, but it's not the same. But you're trying to connect with employers the opposite direction, so to speak, but you're coming at the same outcome, you hope. There is no guarantee that employer will hire them. The guarantee from the employer is that I would hire them. And articulating that to our clients up front is huge. It doesn't mean that you will get a job with this company, but it does mean that they are willing, if they have an opening, to engage you in that conversation. And I can't control the hiring piece of it. Tony said, it's one thing to talk to an employer, basically. It's another thing to talk to their HR people. And that's really true. I mean, there's that kind of disconnect. We talked about that as a unit. The next piece of what we want to kind of jump into is to go from the employer itself now to talking to their HR people. If we can get the end with the owner, then we can slide this direction and have a conversation with the HR people, so that what Brandon talks about doesn't happen as often. It's a little more smooth. It allows the client to experience some success. And that's really what I want. I mean, that's really what we have to do. But I think it's the honest discussion with them up front that, hey, this is a complicated system. This workforce system in Missouri is not easy to navigate. It's difficult. If Dr. Leathers was on this call, Dr. Leathers would tell you the same thing. It's complicated. I'm trying my best to figure out how to uncomplicate it, but it's difficult to unravel, 20 years of what you've done. And you don't just want to start over. That's a whole new piece. But I think the Job Centers of the Future initiative that is being started by DHEWD will help that process. I think they're trying to address what Brandon was talking about a little bit more organizationally. But for apprenticeships, it's exactly where we want to be as a department. We want that connection. We want to engage that employer. I want that employer to come inside the walls of the prison and see what's going on. I have nothing to hide. We have nothing to hide. We're very proud of our career and tech programs, and we're proud of what we're doing. So come on in and see it. Let's take it away from being a novelty to helping them understand that this is a little community inside the walls that have these, these really sharp things around it. But inside is a community. And we're not trying to teach these people life skills and how to go to work and what it means to be a positive influence on those around you. So, Nathan, I think that's really the key to it, is being honest, but also admitting that, it's not a perfect system, and it's not going to be. We're going to keep striving to get better. As Governor Parson says, we're going to be better today than we were yesterday. Hopefully we'll be better tomorrow than we were today. And that's the goal.
Mm-hmm. And so when you've had those conversations with your clients, when you make those honest admissions, what's the reaction that you get? Do people understand that? Do they resist that?
I think for the most part, I think there's an acceptance of it. I think I think there's a piece of them that says, oh, great, here we go again. And the more times you've been in the system, the more that happens. For anybody who's been back in prison 2, 3, 4, 5 times, it's real easy to get in that cynicism mode. Oh, I've been there, done that, and it's hard to help them understand, but it's different this time. And they'll say, how is it different this time? Well, because we've not done it this way before. We're trying to do it differently. And so let's go into it with a better attitude. Let's give this a shot and let's talk. And I think that's the key. We go back to the conversation about how we're trying to be more funnel oriented in how we deliver services and how we interact with the client. I think that's a key to what we do. And so, it's met with skepticism, and I don't blame them. I do not blame them at all, y'all. I mean, they're trying to dig out as much as we want them to dig out. They want to be successful. No, Brandon, I don't think you ever went back to prison and said, ooh, I want to go back to prison. I got out and I want to go back. Brandon, was that ever thought of your process?
I don't recall that was the case.
Right. So they want to be successful. So how do we help them? I mean, I think it's coming alongside of them. And I think that's why, the pieces that we've talked about earlier today are so important to us, creating a larger support section, network for our clients, and being able to say there's a lot of people here that believe in you and that support you. And you have to be willing, and I think Brandon would agree with me, to ask for help, to say, I don't get this. I don't understand this. And when you get frustrated, to know that you've got these people that you can go to and say, help me. I'm at a loss here. I'm at a loss. I feel phone calls every day, Nathan, from clients who call and say, Mr. Chapman, I can't get a job in Kansas City. Can you help me? Well, here's some folks that we work with. So let me give you their information. Here's the phone number. Here's who to ask for. I think the more we can whittle down for our clients, here's the number. Here's who you talk to. Here's what that process is going to look like. We take some of that skepticism out. That's different, Brandon, than probably what a client has heard Chantel in the past, is that we're trying to be much more deliberate and intentional about the communication we have.
Thanks, Ken. And now, Becky, I haven't forgotten about you, and I want to get your take on this, because I think there's a component that relates here also about these sort of where the restrictions come into people's lives. And I'm thinking in particular of a person who I spoke to a few years ago, who she was interested in, I think it was a radiology program at St. Louis Community College. And the college was, totally willing to consider her application. The fact that she had this felony conviction was not itself disqualifying, but we were able, she and I were able to figure out that the issue was that the hospital where she would need to do an internship or an externship, that sort of a thing, the hospital wouldn't take her. So, even though she could go to the community college and get her degree, she couldn't really get her degree because it wasn't just up to the community college. So how do you help students navigate, and that's just one example, and I'm sure it's not the only one, how do you help students or potential students navigate those barriers, or help them at least identify those barriers and direct them so that they can get something that they can actually use?
Right. And we do see that kind of across the board, even in manufacturing, right? So we work with a defense contractor. So yeah, they are very, we tell people they're going to look at your background. They're going to do a background check for 7 to 10 years. We don't know what disqualifies someone and what doesn't. So we just try to be as clear as we can from the beginning with people. Like Ken said, some people decide to move forward and give it a shot. And some people, that works for them. Other people decide, okay, well, what are my other options? So we can sit down with them and say, right, if that radiology program isn't right for you, what else in healthcare might be something you could do on the manufacturing side? One of the programs I talked about in my breakout session was an HVAC program we have that you had mentioned. It's a residential HVAC. Some companies aren't going to hire justice involved people then to go work in someone's house, right, to make house calls. But there are companies that will hire that aren't residential, but they know about the program and that's a base that they can learn to get somewhere else, right? They've gone to a GM, they've gone to other places where they know they have that skill and they can teach them the rest that they need. So sometimes these programs, even though you may not be able to get into the exact place you want, you can take a program and to get the skill you need to get somewhere within the industry. And we want to help people figure out that. and kind of like Ken said, we don't control who hires, who hires at all. We tell people that. Some people take it well, some people don't. It's also on us, though, to take ownership of that at some point and say, all right, our industry partners on this program aren't hiring people. We need to stop offering this program, because we may be giving them a skill, but then we're giving them no hope at the end of it or anything to do with it. And that word travels like wildfire. You can do all the marketing and everything in the world, but as soon as someone starts telling people, I took this program and I'm not going to get a class, I couldn't get a job, that hurts. And people stop coming, and we don't want to have, and we've cut classes like that. I mentioned that before too. And even as we're starting up this new grant, as we're putting programs in place, we will find out, unfortunately, that some of them might not work. And then we'll have to pull back from those. So we just really want to make sure that people are getting the skill they need, but a skill that gets them into that job.
Mm-hmm. And do you have a sense of those professions or those particular employers where you have had issues? Do you know if those tend to be higher paying employers? There's sort of a disproportionate effect where the places where people can get jobs are lower wage jobs.
They're really not. So the ones that are really low paying jobs, we often don't partner with them, or we'll just kind of, we don't we don't send people that way. We have had companies who come to us, manufacturers, and they might pay $9 an hour. And we're kind of like, well, that's not, we have companies that will pay these other jobs. At the same time, these are the same companies that when they start at $8.59, whatever, dollars an hour, they're keeping people for about a month and they're quitting, right? They're not staying. And so you can't really help a company like that because they're not going to do what they need to do to keep and engage and value those employees. So we don't want to send people there either. So it's really kind of all over the board. Most of the manufacturers we work with pay pretty well. We also have some funding options through the state for these companies. So there's a minimum that they have to pay their employees to qualify for those anyway. So that's not usually something that we have to worry about. But every once in a while it does come up. And like I said, we don't want to get someone who, is a single mom or had a household, father of 3 and put them into a $9 an hour job, right? You can go to Chick-fil-A and make much more than that. So why would you want to do that? And then we want to make sure once they get in there, and that's kind of the point of the apprenticeship, is that they have a goal of where they can go within that company, and they can kind of see even where that can take them.
Is it all right if I add something real quick?
Please, yes, let's make a discussion. Yeah.
So if you look at the last 5 years of narrative, right, we've seen this skills gap. Like that's what we're all solving. And the country's done an amazing job at addressing a skills gap, right? Like we've got programs, we've got apprenticeships, we've got degrees, we've got boot camps, and there's a massive amount of people that reached for the stars. There were buckets of money raining from the sky to go create these programs. But the disconnect here isn't necessarily, I won't say we solved the skills gap because it's a big problem. But what we have now is more of a pipeline problem, right? How do we get companies excited about the people we've now just given these new skills to hire all these individuals? Is it an apprenticeship? Is it somebody who does have a blemish on their record? Is it like, having deeper conversations and some more intentional conversations with employers is important. The one thing that's concerned me specifically with our region is that now employers are getting hit up by like 95 people, right? We've got youth programs. And so there needs to be, I don't want to say a central entity, but some sort of like one voice to those employers of like, hey, these are all great pathways of things in which you can find talent. And these are all options for you to do, so that it just doesn't become an overwhelming process for talent acquisition and, HR folks that like, oh my God, I give up, right? Like that's the part that I know I have concerns with, but we've done a great job. And Brandon hit the nail on the head earlier, right? We did an IT fundamentals class a couple of years ago, specific towards promise zone candidates. And it still was really, really hard for us to help get them into jobs because of all of other, we'll call societal things that caused issues within that, right? Like just to be broad and, within the answer there. And I saw Brandon had his hand up.
Yeah, Brandon, please.
Yeah, I just want to jump in. So I think there's a twofold issue that I think probably needs to discuss. That there is the skills attainment. I think that definitely needs to be addressed. Employers. There's also a side that we need to discuss how the clients are approaching employers. I think more often than not, you go through this program, there's an expectation that it's almost deserved at that point. And I know personally for me, one of the skills that I feel like I'm pretty decent at, and I try to explain to my clients, is that you have to sell yourself. Understanding that going to a job is terrifying for everybody, right? It's not fun for any person with any degree or any type of thing. So really trying to coach clients, and this is why I'm so excited for Ken's reentry thing inside the institution, is because it's going to give them skills to be able to work on that interview process. Because that, in essence, is really what's going to get somebody into somewhere. You could have low skills, but you interview well, they're going to give you a shot. So it's things like that. And I do also believe, working from the back end, working with employers, that's absolutely crucial. But try to build people's self-esteem up to where they go in front of somebody and they can feel like, hey, even if I don't get that, that's okay. I'll get turned down, but I now have these skills for the next time, and this is what I learned, and I'll take this to the next one. So those type of things, and like I said, that's why I'm excited for Ken's program inside the institutions, because they can start that practice in there. I know there's currently some agencies out here in the community. I know can't think of the name right now, but there's multiple agencies right now that have those type of skill sessions. But we need to start it when they're not in a heavily stressed situation, when they're just being released from prison. They got to do a million different things, find their way to the PO, find the job, and now you're trying to teach them something. Let's teach them something when they're currently in the institution, when the stress level is a little bit lower, so they can actually obtain that education and use it and have time to practice. So,
thank you.
Yeah, if I could real quick, I'm sorry, I just want to say kind of on what Brandon just said with the, the interviewing and you got to win them over. And I again mentioned this in my breakout, but I talk to companies all the time, right? And I'm sitting down with them wanting to know what technical needs they have. And I say, what do you need in someone who applies for your job? And they say, I need someone who looks me in the eye and shakes my hand and shows up every day. I can teach them the technical stuff. Right. And that's very true. But I also say, that's not really true, because it's an online application process and you're never going to meet that person. So you have to have something in there that will ping you to the next level so that you can get in front of them and shake their hand and look at them in the face. So, and I kind of struggle with my employers, and sometimes I say things maybe I shouldn't to them because I do get frustrated with that. And something I also mentioned is we talk about that skills gap. A big gap too is what an employer actually needs and can use, and what their job posting says they require. I talk to many companies who go, oh yeah, go ahead and tell them to send in their resume. That's what we would like, but it's not really required. We just put it in there because that's what we'd like to have. Well, you are just cutting out so many people who are never going to apply for that, because they're going to look at it and like you said, Brandon, everyone gets nervous and they think that, they look at their resume compared to a job posting and think I'm not good enough for that. So that is something that industry needs to do. I don't know that they're going to do it, because why, if they can get people with that unicorn that they're looking for, then they're going to keep it out there. But that's definitely, there's a real disconnect between what companies really need and want, and then how people can apply to them and how they get in front of them.
Thanks, Becky. Ken, did you have anything else you wanted to add?
Yeah, I just want to say that I think when we start talking about this, and I think what Brandon said and what Becky said and what Tony said really do kind of mesh with the fact that for us, when we look at the offender side of the piece and we look at the client side, there's hard skills and there's soft skills. And I love the fact that they both have to bring those pieces. We have to bring those pieces into play. And it is about equipping them. But then when you stop and you look at it, it's also about the employer being able to articulate what it is they're really looking for, Becky. And Tony, that engagement with that employer, as you talked about, is so huge. And Brandon, then you bring into it the history that an offender brings into that. And they're like, I can't win from losing. I can work on my soft skills and I can be prepared to go in. But if I don't even get a chance to show those, what is the purpose? What is the point? So we're really, what we're talking about is a revamp of the system. And it's really the employers and us coming together and saying, you need a workforce and you need a labor force. What is it really you want? And do you identify the hard skills and the soft skills the way we're teaching the hard skills and the soft skills. I mean, that's the conversation, Becky. And I think I see you nodding your head. It's the first time today I've been right about anything. So that's essential is the meshing of those two pieces. And that's the challenge of this. And that's the beauty of it, because if we can ever get that perfect storm, Tony, like you were talking about, we would really make a difference. We would really see, I think, our economy, and Brandon, we would see our clients be so successful and just feel like they're valued and that they're important. They're not just number 525-685, which, by the way, is my number from the University of Missouri, but they're actually a person. They're an individual. They're somebody who brings something important to the table.
Thanks, Ken. And I'll take this opportunity to plug our organization, which when we work with women pre-release, we tackle some of these soft skills. We work with women on identity and the confidence piece, so that they can go and impress in these interviews. So that's great to hear that that's also other people are seeing that as a need also. And also, as a reminder to everyone who's listening, please, if you have questions, drop them in the chat box. I will do my best to either work them in or give you a chance to ask them, at the end when we have some time for Q&A. So please, if you have questions, drop them in the chat box. So this event as a whole is focused on apprenticeships in general, employment in general. Our organization in particular, the SoulFisher Ministries, works with women who are incarcerated or who have been incarcerated. So I would like for each of you, and I can pose it in the form of a direct question or just open it up to each of you in turn, the differences between, well, back up a little bit. We know that most people who are incarcerated, most people who are justice involved are men. And we often see that these programs are therefore designed around men's vulnerabilities, men's needs, men's outcomes. And I'm interested in hearing from all of you your thoughts on any salient differences when you're working with women, or to the extent that we're talking about programs, some of these professions that I think probably at St. Louis Community College that are historically dominated by white employees. Also when we're talking about people of color and when we're talking about women, if there are any pertinent differences that you see and sort of how that plays into how you approach your work. And if anyone wants to jump in, they can, or I could, like I said, I can direct it to people individually.
All right, since you said St. Louis Community College, I'll jump in and get the ball rolling. So yeah, we see a very low number of women in our manufacturing programs. We've done specific outreach. When I talked about the defense program that we have. So we have a Boeing pre-employment training program that we've been doing here for many years. That's the one, right, where it's a defense government contract. So they are going to look at backgrounds and do background checks. But, when we just talk about women and minorities as a whole, really women is where we were really lacking in the Boeing pre-employment. So we didn't have to, but we created we called it WAM, Women in Aerospace Manufacturing. And it was events specifically for women to come in and they spend about 3 hours with us where they get an overview of the program and a hands-on in the classes. Because I think a lot of women think, I've never done it, I can't do it. Right? Just because I've never done it automatically equates to I can't do it. So we wanted them to come in and try it with, not risking anything and see what they thought. And we actually had quite a few women that really loved it, right? They were so excited when they left because they're like, I didn't even think I could do that. And then they found out that they could and they were capable. And we had people go through the program that way. And, even a lot of these programs, if you don't specifically when you have a program that is specific for one employer, if you don't make it all the way through that program and don't get hired by that company, you've still gained some skills, right? So you're still employable other places. And we have other companies that will look at them. And then we also, of course, college-wide and workforce solutions and even, our advanced manufacturing programs have made specific outreach efforts and working with schools in the area. We're in North County, so we're looking at the Promise Zone, as Tony mentioned, and we're just trying to do everything we can to reach out and kind of, like you said, meet people where they are, as Ken mentioned earlier. So you don't necessarily have to come to us. Maybe, we'll go to churches and talk to people. If someone is, on a bus, they have to take a bus. We don't expect you to take a bus so that, we can sell you our stuff, right? We should be coming to you. So we want to get into community organizations and into the community and talk to them about what we do. And then hopefully they can come to us and get the training that they need. But it's really just been very focused on how do we reach out to females and minorities and get them into these career and technical education programs, which is where there's such a huge need, and employers are really looking for folks.
Thanks, Becky.
Yeah, so I'll use this opportunity to discuss our new women's program that started in July at CJM. So we currently have a transitional housing program for women from the community and from the institution. So if you have anybody that might be interested, see me. I'll put my email in the chat box. No, so one of the things we first have to recognize that women have different recovery reentry challenges. That's the reality, right? From everything that I've seen, from all the research that I've done, we have to recognize that women have different expectations of the reentry process and different goals. We historically at CJM work with men. Working with men, they kind of have a pretty set goal. Either they want to come out, get a job, or start a business, and they just want to live in an apartment and be happy. That's kind of the general kind of thing we see, and that's great. For women, it gets a little bit more complex. A lot of them want to reunify with their kids, so their goal might not want to be that they want to get involved in a training program or apprenticeship program. That might take 9 months. They just want to get to working so they can get an apartment and start getting their kids back, right? So that's what we're seeing, is that's kind of their primary focus, and that's okay. And also recognize that women have a lot more trauma, right? So going into a male-dominated field, into a warehouse where it's primarily men might not necessarily be the most comfortable position. They'd rather go work where they know other people are working. So that's also another thing we're seeing, is that a lot of the people who go to CWIT, Shermer House, and those type of facilities, pardon me, they all kind of work in one factory, one warehouse, because that's where they feel comfortable, right? Because that's just what it is. So, when we talk about minorities, we already know what the issue is, with minority, especially Black men and Black women in the workforce. We did, St. Louis City did start the Band of Box here in the city. Unfortunately, it's not working exactly the way that they had envisioned it. Right now, most employers are just generally assuming that all Black men and women who are applying to have a felony conviction, and they're just kind of looking it over. So the only people it's really helping is the white men. And so that's something we need to address. We need to shift that narrative, because also currently they can see everybody's, they can go on CaseNet and they can find anything they want to know, right? So they can just look at an application, they can see a name that might have a more urban sound. They're just going to look it up on CaseNet and say, nope, we're not doing that. So trying to shift the narrative, that's what we need to try to shift, because it's not to say that one group does more work better than the other. In fact, I would say it's quite the contrary, because these individuals, especially minority communities, have to work twice as hard just to be equal, right? So trying to get that type of narrative shift is what, we would try to do with CJM. We can try to do all the backleg work, but we also have to incorporate that, like, hey, you might not feel like you're good enough to go to this job, but you need to try it and sell yourself because you are good enough. So trying to shift their self-esteem just a little bit, so that way they can feel they can actually do it, aside from all the challenges and barriers that are placed in front of them.
I think the big, sorry, you go ahead, Ken.
I was just gonna say ditto. I mean, well said. Because you're exactly right. Women's issues are very different than men's issues. And it starts at the very beginning. A woman's pathway to prison is very different than a male's pathway to prison. And we have to recognize that from the get-go. So for us to say there's one certain way to go through this is just absurd. And so that's why we have to make sure that we're addressing women's issues and we're addressing men's issues. And while there is some correlation between certain pieces, we know that women's trauma is huge. And when we're dealing with women inside of a prison, what's one of the first things we do? We take them off a bus and we put them in a room and we strip them down and we delouse them. How wonderful would it be for us to look at them and say, ladies, as we get off the bus, a custody officer does this. Ladies, as you get off the bus, you're going to go in here and here's what we're going to do. And we're going to strip you down. And this is what we have to do for the hygienic and the safety needs of the institution. So please understand that. I'm going to step off the bus now. We have another woman offender who's been through this. So if you have questions, please feel free to ask this woman who's been through this what that's like. All of a sudden, what we've done is we've not just informed them trauma of what's going to come, but now we've also empowered an offender to come on board the bus and say, what questions do you have? Because I've been through this. And all of a sudden you begin to address the layers of trauma. We're not taking it away, but what we're doing is we're confronting it from the get-go. And now you're making a different statement from the moment they walk into the institution about how things are going to function. The programming is different. We're addressing, as Brandon said, reunification. You're right. If you want to know the currency to get to a woman and what that currency is, it's talking about their kids. It's getting their kids back. It's being a good mother. It's that kind of piece. So let's talk about it. Let's give you extra visits when you complete a parenting class. Let's allow you to have a special visit when you do those things. Let's figure out a way to reinforce the positive behaviors that we want to. I mean, it sounds complicated, but it's not. It's just changing the way you function because you're recognizing that the needs are different. That includes workforce needs, non-traditional programs. I won't get into all that discussion, but it's allowing women and not being confined to say, you can only do cosmetology. Really? Because we've got men who would like to do cosmetology too. We have women that would like to do welding. We have women who would like to get into building trades. So we've got to open up those doors for them. I mean, you know, Becky, you talked about it with wham, which I love that word because my wife likes to do that to me all the time. No, but I mean, that's what it's about. It's about looking at that and saying, what is your currency and how can we unlock that potential in you so that we lift the lid and you can really succeed. Tony, go ahead. I didn't mean to interrupt you, bud.
No, actually, you teed me up even better, so it worked out well. I mean, the hardest part in this is really the modeling, right? And it was referenced earlier. If I don't see people that look like me doing the job that I'm kind of interested in, it's really hard for me to get excited about it, right? Like, oh my God, I'm going to be, I want to do this. I mean, women represent 24% of the cybersecurity workforce. I'd have to look up the data real quick for POC within the workforce, but they're low, right? It's under 30%. I've been, harassing employers for 5 years, and I can count the number of women I've met in this space on 2 hands, the number of people of color I've met doing cybersecurity on 2 hands. Like, that's an issue. So it's really hard to model and get people excited about a career field when it's perceived as that's a white person's job. I can't do that, right? So, and then then there's the fine balance of like, man, I really want to engage with those folks that are in industry that look like them, but then as an organization, am I peddling people? You know what I mean? Like, just to am I taking advantage of their time and kindness? And so there's a really just fine balance between getting somebody excited and inspired, and then, trying to be mindful of the individuals, because there is an interest in growing workforce. I don't know. I will make a bold statement. Hopefully I don't offend anybody. Most corporations' answer and solution to D&I is I'm going to hire somebody of color and give them a title of diversity and inclusion, and it stops, right? Like, great. And, there isn't necessarily any tangible goals, right? We're currently participating in the STEM STL community of practice, 100% focused on just increasing diversity and awareness. So like, it's important for us to actually set metrics outwardly to how many POC or women we want to put into the workforce, right? Because then other people get excited. It's important for the Express Scripts and the Centenes and those large corporations to say, we are committed to hire 40% of our workforce this, and you sprinkle in, ex-offenders, that should be a tangible goal, right? Like, and that comes from a state, and smart people like Ken to highlight the value of what that workforce would be. And then I'll leave it and I'll stop rambling here. But the last piece for like Becky, the manufacturing sector is kind of broken, right? They're used to like, we want to get really cheap labor and have no idea of, what's a long-term outcome for me that I can grow within this organization. So here's $9. I'm going to give you a sweatshop job and you're going to hate it in 30 days. Like, how do you incorporate apprenticeship into that to where there's tangible things that somebody can move up to? There's good examples across the state in Illinois of manufacturers that have incorporated apprenticeship, like Boeing has, as a really an on-ramp, right? And my last pitch of apprenticeship, every company, regardless of sector, has one job function that's the gatekeeper for all the rest of their jobs. Build an apprenticeship off of that and scale it into everything else, and then the rest of your talent development gets pretty pretty easy.
Could you, that's an interesting point, and I'm not sure if I totally understand. Could you maybe give an example or?
I'm Commerce Bank, right? My first job that I'm going to offer somebody at Commerce Bank is a teller. Awesome. Well, there's many layers within a bank, right? Becky's husband could talk about banking, right? So like there's 8,000 jobs in banking. Well, if you come on as a teller, well, I can build an apprenticeship for you to be a personal banker, a mortgage banker, a financial planner, vice president, loans, commercial, you know, so, but if I start my apprenticeship at the teller level and provide somebody a plan of how they grow within my bank, I'm going to stay there. I'm not going to jump from US Bank to Commerce or wherever, because I'm not loyal and I see a future within that organization. So you take that to, we'll say true manufacturing, right? They make refrigerators, you know, somebody's popping a weld on a thing. Well, crap. Well, what if I work my way up to the person who's pushing the buttons on the machine to like make me weld it? Like, you know, what does that channel look like? So most organizations have a job function that would be entry that could segue into other things and upskill people through apprenticeship.
Thanks, Tony. So we only have a couple minutes left. Please come with more questions in that chat box if you have them. We have one so far for Becky. So SoulFisher Ministries has a woman. We have a woman in our program, Agape, who is in the culinary arts program at St. Louis Community College. And, you know, we want to find opportunities for her to advance to something beyond a cook job or, you know, sort of the entry level. And I think this relates to what Tony was talking about. So what are the resources at a place like St. Louis Community College, you know, their workforce center, to ensure that these sort of apprenticeship opportunities are available to help this woman and women in similar positions advance beyond those entry level positions to those higher wage positions?
Right. So there, each program really should have a career ladder that is set up. So, and each program will have a department chair or an advisor. So not just a standard academic advisor, because they have to know a little bit about a lot of things. But within culinary, they should be able to go to the head of that culinary department or just start with one of their instructors and say, right, I want to get this, but I don't want to, you know, just take it and go to Applebee's and be a cook forever. I want to know how I move up and all of that. And each department should have that laid out. That is something that is, my understanding, I'm not on the credit side, but is required as part of, you know, program approval, is that they can see where jobs can take you and what a career would look like.
Nathan, can I just add to that? But do they already have like opportunities so that they're not just, you know, starting from scratch on their own, kind of just thrown out there to the wolves? Because that's a very robust program. I mean, I'm a part of the Falling in Love in 5 Courses Gala, a celebrity chef, and that's where they put their mindset. And to finish this robust program and say, okay, go to Applebee's and just start there and work your way up.
Right. Right. So they should. I'm not an expert on culinary by any means, and I'm jealous, Chantel. I've not been to the Falling in Love in 5 Courses. Someday I will get there. But yeah, they should have those connections with industry. Each department should have that connections with industry and be able to connect them to jobs. Again, we can't guarantee jobs, but they should have connections with industries and their partners to say, these are people that hire our graduates and they're successful there and they like them and they come back to the well all the time to look for new people. They should have that information. Worst case scenario, if you kind of want to go broader, is the college has a job board, right? Where companies come and post their jobs, and current and alumni students can go in and post their resumes and look for jobs there. And they're also starting a new online program to connect students with internships. That should be starting soon. So that'll even be another connection that will help.
Thanks, Becky.
If someone has a specific question about the culinary though, my information is in the chat. Email me and I will get you to the right person to make sure that you get your questions answered specifically, not just broadly like I did.
Thank you very much, Becky. So we are right about at 11:45, which I believe is our time to wrap the panel. So I would like to thank all of the panelists for participating and for sharing all of this helpful information, and also for the substantive work you're doing, not just today by talking with us about this, but actually doing the hard work of helping people lead better lives after being involved with the criminal justice system. So thank you for participating today, and thank you for everything you're doing every day.
So there were no more questions. So again, I thank you all. Nathan, thank you again for a great job at moderating the panel. Amazing questions, amazing responses from our panelists, very thought-provoking questions. And that's what this is all about, to challenge people to go away from here and think deeper about these issues, because 95% of people that go to prison are coming back, or is it 97%? A really high number of people that go to prison, they're coming back. And it's up to us as a community, as a society, to decide how do we want them to return back to our communities. I came back to our community 6 times. I came back either the same or worse than when I went in. The last time I came out better, and I'm getting better. But that's only because I had people that were waiting to support me along the way, and people that continue to support me along the way. It didn't happen by osmosis, and it did not happen by standalone, just by my own, merit or, attempts. It was because I had people that were supporting me along the way. And I will venture to say that just about any job that today that I would apply for, I would likely get. But again, it's not because of who I am, it's because of all the people that I know, the network of people that I have now that can help open doors for me. And present opportunities to me that I wouldn't necessarily have had access to previously. I think about Becky, where you were saying about how, like, if you just won't work with that, you'll see, like, if they'll accept that conviction. But I tie that back to what Ken Chapman says. He goes in and has a conversation and says, well, which felonies won't you accept? Because there may be some, because if I go to prison for a DWI, which that is a felony conviction, how does that now ban me from working in cybersecurity? Because I drank too much. You know what I'm saying? I did not steal anyone's identity. My crime is not related at all. So having these conversations so we can really provoke others to start thinking differently about how we can incorporate this population that is inevitably coming back to the St. Louis community and communities across the United States. So that's all that I have. I don't know if anybody has any final closing comments that they wanted to give, any final thoughts that they wanted to share. I would just one by one, starting with Brandon, go around to each of our panelists in 60 seconds, closing statement.
With me. Yeah, so Chantel, I want to just give you credit for creating what you've created. I think you need to be commended, especially with the history you have and what you've accomplished. I obviously am following your career path, and you know that, I've told you that. So yeah, I think just in particular, this is fantastic. I think there's so much we can be done, and it has to be done on both ends. It has to be done on the employer side, on the apprenticeship side, working with schools and agencies to get that done. But also there needs to be a shift just in the narrative with justice involved people. We have to believe that we can do it. And Chantel, you're a perfect example of that. You just have to have enough belief in yourself to do it. So again, thank you for inviting me.
Ken, 60 seconds. I know it's hard for a preacher, but I think you can.
Well, let's talk about the Cardinal. I just want to say thank you to everybody. I really appreciate the opportunity, Chantel, that you and SoulFisher Ministries, Nathan, I know you're obviously on that board, for putting these folks together. I'm very honored to have been a part of it with Becky and Tony and Brandon and the expertise that they bring to the table. The only way we're going to get better is when we do these kind of discussions and we talk about what we can do better. So thank you all so much for being a part of it. And I look forward to the future, and I look forward to another time. And I promise, Tony, the next time we do this, I will have a dance ready. Okay. So I will be prepared. Thank you, guys.
Tony.
I mean, thanks for the opportunity. I have a tendency, I live in a very small bubble of cybersecurity, so it's amazing to see all of the great work that you guys are doing at a state level and locally to help individuals, find, what we all aspire for is meaning and purpose in our lives, right? After something bad had happened to us. So kudos to you guys. I'm happy to help however I can on a personal level to see how we help change the narrative of that, because I think it's definitely something needed. I have family members who have made that transition out, right? That I, want to see them have opportunities to continue to strive and live a great life. So thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you. And last but not least, Miss Becky.
All right, well, thank you. Yeah, again, Chantel, I say what everyone else said. Thank you very much. This is my first introduction to SoulFisher.
Yeah.
So I loved it. I thought it was fantastic, and it was eye-opening to me. I learned a lot of things that I didn't know, and I'd be happy just to be a part any way I can moving forward. So please don't hesitate to reach out and let me help out where I can and involve St. Louis Community College. And you all have my information. So we're a big organization, and it's easy to call and not get someone or not get the right person and never get where you want to go. Call me. I will not give up until I get you to the right person and you have spoken to them. I promise. That is that's my pledge to you.
Thank you. Again, thank you all. Thank you to all of our attendees for coming and joining us today. We've had an amazing time for you. And I think before we go, Jaleesa has one last poll for you all, and then we'll let you go. Okay, so we have had an amazing time again. Enjoy the rest of your day and your weekend. Until next time, be blessed. Thank you.